And welcome in to another Monday Night live stream. Today we'll be talking about the NAB, as almost all of YouTube appears to be talking about, and other random things we come across. So why don't you calm down? I'm a trained broadcast engineer, as my shirt says. Things are going to be okay. I see that my lovely wife is in the chat, as well as Joe. So you can start the JAU counter if you haven't made yet. So anybody else out there in the chat? Or we'll just give it a second. So not a lot of updates to tell you about. Hopefully soon. But we'll have to wait another week for that at least. But yeah, some products came out at NAB that have me actually kind of interested in a couple things. I need to know a lot more about them before I would say, jump into them and whatnot. But I definitely think there are some products out there we can discuss. So the first thing I find interesting from NAB this year is the ATEM's Television Studio 4K8. And as you know, I'm not big on 4K. I don't think it's a thing most people need. But what has me interested in the 4K8 is the direction that Blackmagic is going. And that is the fact that they can now, with the 4K8, change the audio outputs on channels 3 through 12. This came from, I believe, Ryan from Australia, whose last name I forget. But Ryan posted a video this morning about the 4K8, and he says that you can now change the audio routing on the outputs. Summerfield. Thank you, Joe. And that has me interested because, as you may or may not know, in the world of professional TV, we typically utilize more than just two channels. We don't just do left and right stereo audio. We typically do at least 8 channels, if not 16. So the fact that now you can embed on the output of the mixer more than 2 channels, meaning more than left and right, that's a good direction for Blackmagic. I think they need to go down that road more and more. Not necessarily because people in the home studio environments are going to want that, but it leads to uses and scenarios where their gear could be utilized in the field as a backup mixer or a secondary feed mixer, or scenarios where you don't need a whole mixer, like a whole big mixer, but you want a small mixer for like a dedicated stage feed, or a Spanish language broadcast that you want maybe different anchors, or who knows what. Just the fact that they've adopted more of that television standard audio is great. I think it's good for Blackmagic, and I think it's good for the industry. And this isn't the first thing they announced that I think is good for them and the industry. But yeah, I think that's I need to know more about it before I would say yes, give it a complete thumbs up. But from what Ryan was saying in the video, and some of the little video he showed, it sounds like they're going the right track. And you can also use that audio output as MADI streams, or you can take the MADI input and put them on the output, so that you really can use an external mixer with these with the 4K8, I should say. Because really, I don't have an ATEM, but I played around with one before. Their audio mixing capabilities is not exactly what I would say is excellent, but it definitely gets the job done. So if they can offload mixing, via MADI, and then bring it back in MADI, and then output it embedded, you open up a lot of opportunities there for custom audio mixes, mix minus feeds, like true mix minus feeds. And so I think that's good for Blackmagic, and I think that's good for the industry as a whole. So I of course will not be getting a 4K 8, but I know some people might be interested. Joe, I think you mentioned you might be interested, or Tony. I'm not sure who that was now. But the other product that Blackmagic released that I definitely want to know more about is the Decklink IP HD, which supports 2110. And 2110, as long as Blackmagic doesn't get weird about it, is the current. Oops. So the Decklink 2110 or 21 HD IP is directly into the 2110 IP broadcast system. So 2110 is what I don't say every truck, almost every brand new production truck is using. The Super Bowl truck, the Monday Night Football truck. I mean, the big trucks are using 2110 as their baseband system. Instead of using SDI, they're now using 2110. And so if you can buy a capture card, which I think it said, was that $345? I think I lost the price. Yeah, $345. If you can buy a card now, and for $345 be able to send or receive 2110, that opens a lot of possibilities in my head for use in television. Period. I mean, not just production trucks. I mean, think university campuses. If you have a good 10 gig network set up for your system, you can now send video streams across campus using the IP infrastructure, and not have to worry about the NDI, broadcast, announce, all that stuff, protocols that they do, that I think just kind of creates weird issues. And I never liked how NDI, basically you had to be on the same subnet, and it didn't really want to cross subnets. When I'm pretty sure, although I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure 2110 can cross subnets. If it can't, well then I'm sorry, but I just feel like 2110 being the broadcast standard that everyone's adopting, it's another step in the right direction for Blackmagic. I feel like they're finally embracing standards that people are using. Have they adopted NDI, I probably would have said, wow, that's just not good. Had they adopted a proprietary format like they did with their streaming bridge, where it's their custom flavor RTMP, again, that was just kind of a bad move for them, in my opinion. Yeah, 2110 is the new IP standard for sending video, and it is, I don't believe it's compressed. Maybe it is. I don't think it is, though. At least, yeah, I don't think it is. Well, what does their website say? Does it use the word uncompressed anywhere? Yeah, I don't think it is compressed, because these are 10 gig internet interfaces, and all the broadcast formats that they list right here, 1080p is 3 gigs, so you could do 3 1080p signals inside of a 10 gig link. I don't know what 1080p 60. What is 1080p? Yeah, so you can do 3 1080p signals inside of a 10 gig link. So I think it's uncompressed. I'm pretty sure. So to me, that definitely is. Oh, you can compress. Well, yeah, I guess you could apply compression, but with 10 gigs, I wouldn't think you'd want to. but I guess you could. Can you give an example architecture with the cards? Oh, okay. So, what I'm thinking more along the lines of these cards are going to be good for is, and I think even Blackmagic just mentioned it somewhere. Is graphics and processing of, having it maybe act as a playout server, or make it, having graphics be able to be created in a machine and now spit out across 2110. Kind of like I'm doing across this, this right now. This stream is all OBS, but if you wanted to have a dedicated graphics machine, you could buy a Decklink card and spit it out via IP, which is what we do for NDI at the stadium. We have a graphics person on a laptop or dedicated desktop in this case, and they could, with this card, they could spit out graphics across the network as IP 2110 to another card or another machine running 2110. And for venues, I'm thinking if you have, say you have a vMix computer and you have 3 or 4 devices that can output 2110 that are inside the venue, you could ship them across campus or ship them out with one fiber cable. You could ship them all outside to a truck where they could get mixed using a computer with these cards. So if your camera, yes, exactly. You would use a this instead of running all the SDI feeds, which is why in the big trucks they've adopted IP, because they literally will connect 2 full-size trucks together with like 10 cables, and they're just 10 gig cables, and then all the feeds go across these fibers, and that can be one cable, that has 10 pairs inside of it. And then they hook up one cable, and now they've got connectivity across multiple trucks instead of running these heavy SDI cables or, whatever. And those fiber links could be 100 gig too. They don't have to be 10. I'm just saying that, generally speaking, that was kind of what I was assuming they were. But they could be 100 gig links, and now you could transport, 33 feeds, I guess. Probably 30 feeds, if I had to guess, between trucks on one fiber using 2110. So I think this is huge. Yeah, and you could leverage the existing IP network, exactly. And that these cards were not the only thing that Decklink or Blackmagic came out with that was 2110, which again I just think is crazy good. Here is a converter, and this converter could slide into a frame, and on the back of the converter, oops, I need to show you. On the back of the converter, you could feed 3 SDI feeds in and get your 3 2110 outputs. And this is great for people, obviously the truck industry or whatever, but also I could see a use case where, Joe, you're doing your remotes. You could put 3 cameras up front and plug them into the SDI, and then take one Ethernet cable back to the switcher, and then use another one of these units to convert it back to SDI. So instead of running 3 SDI cables to front, to the stage where we were at, you could run one Ethernet cable, and now send these video feeds across there. And then it has a loop out and an SDI out, which again, Ryan Summerfield I think needs to, or is going to, clarify a little bit more about how to use these. But imagine this being basically an SDI to Ethernet snake. I mean, you bring 3 SDI cables in, you bring an Ethernet cable out, you run it across the, wherever, you convert it back to SDI. I mean, and you know, in my world, I'd say, well, there's no redundancy in that, except that if you do it right with the networking switches, you could run, you could plug that box in to a network switch that then has two diverse paths going back somewhere else to another switch, and then plug your decoder off of that. So you could actually build in redundancy using this now, because IP networks can handle redundant connections. So now you're able to, instead of running those SDI cables and hoping that, no one trips on one or cuts one, you could actually run diverse paths back to, the truck or wherever you want to go, and actually have some redundancy, which I think would be pretty cool. So I honestly have to hand it to Blackmagic. When these two things were announced, I was shocked. I was really just happy to see them adopting a standard that is, actually being used outside of themselves. And according to this, you can even do PoE. This thing can be powered off PoE plus, which is kind of cool. So you asked, can I send video back? That's the part I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of clarification on if it's simultaneously or if it was 3 in and or 3. I don't know. I was. So that was the thing that was basically, I don't know, and I hope Ryan Summerfield will update us this week, since he's there, and I think he has a meeting with them on Wednesday, I think he said, or yeah, maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure. But yeah, so hopefully he updates us more. Hopefully there are some example ones out there that he can play with. Maybe Blackmagic will do a demo. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Because as you just pointed out, yeah, they did something right. They did something, in my opinion, that they were lacking. And they were, they were always in their little, they're bringing the cost down, but they're adopting standards, assuming these are truly a standard compliant. They're adopting standards that actually that people are using on high-end stuff. That RTMP streaming bridge thing really burned me. And I know they didn't say it was an RTMP receiver, but when you make a product that can receive RTMP, and then you customize it so only your boxes can feed it, that was a step in the wrong direction, in my opinion. This is 2 steps in the right direction, if not 3 steps in the right direction for Blackmagic. So, good for them. I mean, good for them. I want to be transparent and give them praise where they deserve it, and this is a step in the right direction, as long as they don't screw it up. And I should say welcome in. I don't know if I did that or not. So welcome in. Is it Nils? I think it is. I'm going to say Nils. Welcome from Australia, I think. Is that where you're from? So the other thing. Well, now, don't go that far. I'm just kidding. No, that's funny. I mean, yeah, they make. I mean, they make some good stuff. Their Decklink cards has always been the thing that I look at them and say they got that right, because their Decklink cards, in my experience, have proven to be reliable and last. They last a long time. I mean, in our cyber recovery plans, we're using cards that I think are 7 years old, maybe even 8 years old, and they still work. So their Decklink stuff has always been good. It's just that their switchers and software, I think, has been where their problem is. Oh, Germany. I'm sorry. Germany. So, any questions before we move on? I think that was all I wanted to talk about Blackmagic. Yeah, so those are the three things I saw from Blackmagic that were of interest to me. And then I actually saw some things from Rode that I was honestly kind of surprised about. I don't know that I have a use case for some of them, but the one I definitely think for this stream, even the way I'm doing this stream right now, would probably be something I would look into for sure. My phone is going off. Am I missing something? No. Okay. So let's check out Rode. So Rode made a couple announcements that I think are pretty cool. Oh, oops. Let's go back to the chat real quick because I see a couple questions. So in their thing, it does say that it'll lock on to a clock. So I do believe you do need to have some sort of master clock, which is the one thing. It's got to be a PTP clock, if I'm not mistaken. That was one of the questions that I asked of Ryan on his YouTube video this morning, was to get clarification from Blackmagic on how they're going to do the clock. If you, the Blackmagic website made a reference to, where did they say that at? So it says any SDI source on the video will be retimed to the 2110 PTP clock automatically. And then there's a reference output so you can lock external SDI equipment to that PTP clock as well. So yeah, I believe you do need a clock source. The question being, can these boxes act as a clock source, or do they need an external clock source? That I don't know. And that's one thing I'm curious to know. And if I was there, I would definitely go ask him. But yeah, I don't know. But yes, you do need a clock. Bob Carpenter's here from Vancouver. So Joe says another cool thing on the 4K8. Oh, you can configure all the SDI outputs now. Okay, so they're not all just program feeds. That'd be good. I could see that being helpful. Alrighty, so oops, let's go back to the Chrome. So Rode had a couple things, and this one, while I don't think I would, I'm not sure I'm ever going to have a Rodecaster Pro II. Apparently, it has a wireless microphone receiver built in, and they just never told anybody about it, which I think is kind of actually clever. I wish that's kind of clever. I think more companies should, you know, I'm not saying hide things, but I mean, they obviously had design goals when they built the thing that the firmware wasn't ready for. So now they've unlocked this new hidden feature, which is a wireless microphone. I just think that's kind of funny. Like you said, yeah, Joe, I agree with you. It's funny. But honestly, very handy. Like I said, I'm not sure I would ever buy one of these little mixer thingies, because they're not really mixers, because they're not. I guess they are mixers, but like I don't know. They're more than just a mixer. So yeah, that's a good one. Easter egg wireless. That's a good that's a good one, Joe. Yeah, had they done this on April Fool's, That'd been good too. But I really do think that this gives you some flexibility in terms of podcasting. For those who have one, obviously now you can go directly in, simplifies your setup, which is great. The thing that I actually was looking at for this channel is the Streamer X, which is I don't know why anyone hasn't done this before. It's an XLR input device with an HDMI port, so you can capture HDI video and an audio input using the same device. So in my setup, I wanted to get a dedicated camera that has HDMI output and use my external microphone, instead of using a USB audio interface, I could use one interface to capture both of those things at the same time. And that to me is a great little upgrade, because now you're bringing in video and audio at the same point. You use the good preamps. Hopefully their HDMI capture is good. I don't know what Rode, does with video. They're usually an audio company. But the fact that you can now capture, gameplay and a microphone in the same device, combine them there and let it go, is great. I also think that the USB-C connections, to bring in audio from more than one computer or hook up to more than one computer, I don't have a use case for that I'm aware of, but still, you could see where they really thought of a lot of cool things and are going to bring it into one device, which again is, to me, the Streamer X is actually a product that I would buy unless it was like crazy expensive. But I don't think it's going to be that crazy of an expensive device. But again, I have not seen prices. So, alrighty, let's see at the chat. I see the things moving. Joe says he needs submixes, buses, and multiple outputs. The Rodecaster Pro is great. It just ain't actually pro. Yeah, that's kind of my issue with it. Is it's not really a mixer. It's so much as a multiple input DAC. Really, when I think of mixers, I think of, like you said, submixes. I think of different buses or mix minus outputs, and I don't, at least from what I can tell, the Rodecaster Pro doesn't do that, at least not very well. So doesn't fit a need that I have. But the Streamer X, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a tool that I could put right here in front of me and plug my microphone into. Maybe have a laptop or something feeding that as a video input. And now, or my camera feeding that, and now I can combine, a capture card and an audio device into one. And from what I've gathered, the Rode has pretty good preamps, so that wouldn't hurt either. I'm surprised no one did discover that, or if they did, they didn't make it, obvious. But then again, I'm not entirely sure how Rode does their microphones. I don't think they're are they in the 2.4 gig range? I forget how that works. So it's possible it had a Wi-Fi chip in it and no one knew what it was for. I don't think that's the case, but I wouldn't know for sure. There's a similar device from Roland. Okay, I don't really know much about Roland, but either way, I'm glad they came out with it. I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing reviews and how much it cost. Toro's in the house. And the Streamer X has 4 buttons, so you can use like a Stream Deck. Oh yeah, that's true. There are buttons on here that you could program to do certain things. Yeah, okay. So you guys confirmed. So it's 2.4 gigs. So I mean, the Rodecaster probably just had a standard Wi-Fi chip inside. Um, People probably didn't know what it was for if they tore it down. If they did, have no idea if they did or not. The USB-C is more for gaming streamers who use one PC for gaming. Oh, okay. Still could be interesting. Can you play Simon Says on it? I remember that game. Oh, you have the wireless goes. We bought. Oops. We bought the. Was it the wireless goes? Is the wireless go the one that has the two, can do like dual receivers, can receive two microphones at once? Because if that's the case, then we bought one of those for sports. We basically wanted to mic up a coach, and our current receivers, the high end fancy ones, apparently the range was not good enough to mic up a coach, which I found hard to believe, but I'll take their word at it. The range was not good enough. Plus, it's also a $600 transmitter, and so I bought the wireless goes for sports, and basically at the price that they were at, I'm like, if they get trashed, it's not the end of the world. And they said that the range on that was amazing, except that they did go to a very popular stadium, and they had issues with it because 2.4 was quite crowded. But at the practice fields where they were doing the mic'd up segment, they worked perfectly. Yeah, Roland, I haven't heard that name in quite a while. I mean, I'm honestly surprised they still exist. So the Wireless Go 2 are actually good surprising. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was, yeah. Two transmitters, one receiver, so yeah. And they're not that expensive, I don't think. Are they? I don't remember them being very expensive. That's why I bought them. Like I was like, cool, this is wireless microphones, wireless. What is the Wireless 2? Is there a price on here somewhere? Yeah. So at literally half the cost of the transmitter, I bought a whole system for sports. Yeah, now I remember. So the other thing that I was curious about or saw from Rode that was, kind of interesting to me was the pod mic USB, which I think is kind of cool. Definitely something I was thinking about, getting because as we've discussed on this channel, this microphone is like 20 years old. While it doesn't sound horrible, it's not exactly the best. And I have a Roland, actually, now that I look at it, mixer little here or preamp here. And so if you can get a good sounding microphone that you could just plug in with USB, I think that that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to hearing how this one works. I see it has, voice processing and DSPs built in. So again, something I think would be kind of cool and could simplify a lot of podcast or video productions. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the price on that thing is. Yeah, they are awfully tiny. I was I was surprised at how small they were when they came in, and I could see where a wedding you would want something small for sure. They go on sale. The Pod mic competes with the Shure SV171. Sorry, Shure SMV71. I'm not sure I know what that is. Oh, it's just a podcast mic, and it's got USB in it. Yep, but not USB-C. No, I don't care, but that's interesting that it's USB-A, B, no, mini. Sorry. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always would say history says that Shure is better than Rode. At least Shure has a much longer or much better history of good microphones. So I would understand your statement that I think Shure is probably better than Rode, but I kind of want to see the price point. See where that comes in it, and maybe some of those audio testers that I follow on YouTube will do some reviews and can kind of get a better idea what it sounds like. Yeah, it uses the micro USB. Um, the MV71 sounds very close to the SM7B. Okay, I mean, it looks like their other line, the other microphones. So, oops, let me close that. So let me look at my list and see what else is on my list. The Blackmagic Decklink IP, the 2110, the embedded audios, the built-in receiver. Yeah, okay. So that was kind of my list of things. I also, for those of you who are interested, am continuing my migration from Ubuntu to Debian. My home lab, with the exception of one virtual machine, is now fully converted. I had forgot about two virtual machines that I used. I don't use them very often. I just kind of have them. I don't really. I could say they're good test machines. They're good machines to play with. So those now are Debian. So I only have to convert my Nextcloud installation, which I know I said I was going to do like 3 weeks ago, but never actually finished. So I've moved to all Debian VMs for everything from Unify to Zen Orchestra to Nginx to a URL shortener, which again I just play with that one. That one's kind of just it's fun to have. My MinIO test setup is all Debian, so I switched to that. That's all done, except for, like I said, the Nextcloud, which I'm actually trying to put together a list of scripts that would allow me to build like one installation script for Nextcloud, where you could literally just install Debian and then hit this one script and have it install everything for Nextcloud. The script that I tried to use that is very popular to use for that does all kinds of weird settings, and I don't like that. I'd rather just install Nextcloud and be done. I don't want it to change the login and change the password and get rid of this account and that account. I just want it to install Nextcloud. So I'm trying to make a stripped down version of that script to install Nextcloud, and the way I want it at least. And so it's kind of my project. If you watched the Jeremy video the other day, I asked him about how to find and replace files or lines of code inside of a text document, because I'd like the script to just go inside and change a couple parameters and not have to do it manually. I know it can be done. I'm just not sure how to do it, like the best way to do it, where basically what I want to do is make a script that goes inside to the PHP file and changes the amount of memory and I forget what else it needs to change. It changed like 5 things. And I'd rather just the script did that instead of me having to do it manually. And of course, people now ask, why not Docker? Try Docker. VMs are so 90s. They are. I mean, I guess that they are old-fashioned, but I mean, I got a machine with 128 gigs of RAM, so I'm not worried about RAM. And I love the ability to just back up the whole machine and basically make snapshots of it, data included. So I'm not just using containers as the application with the config file that has to be backed up with data somewhere else. I just like the whole VM to be one file, self-contained, backed up, Plus, it really helps me learn the system, so that way I'm actually like poking around and changing configuration files and kind of get more used to that stuff. Because I've actually had a discussion with somebody about, moving on up, and basically they're like, well, do you know Linux command line? Are you proficient at it? And I was like, well, I mean, I know enough to get myself around. And so the thought has crossed my mind that if I become more proficient at Linux, that there may be some opportunities for me to move up in my company if I ever want to, and be more like a Linux admin, because we have several machines that run Linux at the data centers. So it was a thought. It's not a very strong thought at this point, but it was something that was like, oh, I should probably become, learn more about that and learn some more of the advanced techniques. So yeah, I mean, while you could install Portainer or just do Docker Compose or whatever, that's done for you. It's like, it's almost like, to me, it's almost like taking the easy way out. I don't want to do it that way. I want it to, do the actual steps to make it work, instead of just going here's Nextcloud or here's whatever. And my Nginx instance, for example, has the RTMP module built in, and I kind of changed some things around with it. And I'm actually going to try to host like 3 or 4 different websites or platforms on the same server. I'm sure the Docker Compose can do that too, or Docker can do that as well, but it's just a thought. Joe says they shot a video today, 3-camera shoot, 5 hours of footage, 1080p, 842 gigs. Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing ProRes, that would definitely make a lot of sense. ProRes definitely eats up storage. So, I've made Roku apps, several in fact, but I haven't touched Roku in a long time. And honestly, it was one of those things where I feel like unless you're going to dive into Roku and live inside that ecosystem, you're never going to be able to keep up, because Roku, in my experience, is constantly changing the rules and the requirements. And if you're not keeping up with it, then your apps will get rejected, and you've got to go in and figure this code out. And I can't personally keep up with that. It's too much. It's just too much. In fact, the last request I got to make an app, I just turned it down because it's too much. Docker's applications and programs are separate. They don't have to. They don't have huge OS bloat or overhead. No, I mean That's true. Um, like I said, I like to just make it myself, or not make the whole. I'm obviously not making Apache or Nginx, but I kind of like just the process of doing it and making it, as opposed to just saying install this and go. Because yeah, I could totally do that. Um, but yeah, no, you could totally back up the file system or the config files, or the data could live on TrueNAS, or unraid in your case. Um, I'm not saying you can't. I don't know. To me, I like the idea of a VM, um, because if I ever wanted to do it on a you know physical server, I guess you could still do Docker on physical servers. But I don't know, just the idea of having a VM where you could shut it down and it's on its own and it has its own IP address, and it just makes a lot more sense to me. When I did try Docker, for a couple things, the networking part got me confused. It with basically the port routing and having to expose outside ports to inside ports, and I know that's just port forwarding, but for some reason it didn't work for me, and I ended up breaking the one thing that I was trying. I run uh, UISP as a Docker thing at work, and it's just confusing to me, and it's broke 3 times. I kid you not. I've broken it 3 times by simply doing apt update or apt upgrade. Um, to me, that's a little scary if you're just a production environment, that just simply doing an apt upgrade will break it. Not saying that can't happen in virtual machines, but when you break your UISP controller 3 times and had to like revert back, or in the one case I had to like rebuild the whole thing, that wasn't fun. Um, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying I've had bad experience with Dockers in a production environment breaking, and so I'd rather just have a VM where I could snapshot it and go back, the whole thing, data, config, everything. But I'm not saying I won't try it again. I'm just saying, to me, I'm not low on computing resources, so I'm not looking to save a gig or two of RAM on each VM. Speaking of Unraid, it is currently gobbling up the 842 gigs. How do you not have a 10 gig network? I figured you'd have, what is the Unify 10 gig switch? The aggravation switch, as everyone calls it. Um, or the MikroTik, what is that small one, like the 4-port one that seems pretty cool if you have a need for it. It's like $55, or it's not that cheap. But yeah, I figured you have a 10 gig network by now. My power is expensive, so Docker. Oh no, yeah, there are. Oh, trust me, there are reasons why I understand why people do Docker, especially if you want it on a Raspberry Pi, or if you have power like you do, where you can't run just a beefy server. If the server that I have wasn't free, I would probably uh, explore Docker a while ago, because my old server was basically a Dell Optiplex, and I didn't have enough storage, enough RAM to house everything I wanted to put on it. So I considered Docker for a while there, but then I was lucky enough to get a free server that has 120 gigs on both physical storage in terms of the hard drive and the RAM. Both of those limitations are gone. So um, virtual machines to me make sense. I'm a fan of Docker, but I recently had to upgrade to a new Docker version and found out that I had to delete the container and rebuild it. Yeah, like I said, I ran into an issue where I had to rebuild my UISP machine or UISP instance. Did my mic? Hello? I see. Oh, I see levels now. That was weird. Um, yeah, UNMS, isn't that the UISP now? Isn't that what they call that? Um, yeah, it didn't take me long to rebuild it or to get it back up and running, but just the fact that it broke by doing a apt upgrade kind of annoyed me. Joe, oh, you did buy the Switch. It won't negotiate down to 1 gig? Really? Like it's 10 gig only? That seems weird. Yeah, if you don't need well, I've never experienced this, but the one thing about Microtech I've always heard is that it's hard to configure. So if you just want a simple switch, then the Microtech 8 port, or I guess, or the 5 port, whatever it is, uh, sounds great. If you don't need the whole VLAN configurations or whatever else like that that make Microtech hard to use, from what I've gathered, I've never used Microtech and never seen Microtech, so I have no idea if it actually is hard to uh, configure or not. Oh, the Microtech has gone way up in price. Well, that sucks. What is it? Or the Microtech? Looks like it's 154 now on Amazon. This is the same one, yeah. That does sound more expensive than I remember it being. Don't buy it from Miss Amazon. I say, do you have a distributor that you prefer, Bob, other than Amazon? That's interesting because my VU meter in OBS like just completely went to zero, even though I was talking. So it could just be a monitoring issue, but it was gone for a second there. Okay, I thought it did. So I guess what Bob is saying that Joe needs to travel all the way across the continent to buy your microtick switch, or Bob can buy it and send it to you via FedEx or whatever. And that's just what Joe just said, only in a different way. That's funny. Um, so anything else? Any questions or I didn't really have anything else kind of planned at this point. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. I will say that I'm looking forward to more NAB announcements. I've seen a couple things out there today to maybe go like, maybe I'll do a recap of those next time. With one of those being, there's a broadcaster who has decided that they're going to put their entire playout system for all their stations in the cloud. And while we've had that cloud discussion before on this channel, and we'll probably have it again in the future. It just seems odd to me that you would put your playout of all your stations in the cloud. I don't know. It just seems weird to me. They've decided to do this, I'm guessing, partly based on the fact that they got hacked a couple years ago and they were down for like 10 days. At least they were locally. So that probably has a lot to do with that because they wanted to offload that to another environment that isn't theirs. But I think that kind of opens up a whole new can of worms. But that's neither here nor there. But maybe we'll talk about that in the future once I know more about that, because it was just announced and I haven't read up about it enough to know what they're actually planning on doing, other than they said they're moving all their stations to the cloud, which I thought was interesting. Bob Carpenter says they have two OSs for their switches. They use Switch OS or Router OS. Is confusing, requires a degree in rocket surgery. So yeah, they are the ones that are confusing. I thought MikroTik had a weird interface. But like I said, if you just need a switch, from what I gather, it does that fine. Bob's walking his dog again. Oh, yeah, so because you're watching, you actually noticed the audio dropout. Bob did not because he's just listening. That actually makes some sense. Alrighty, well, I feel like I've hit one JAU. If Joe, you have the actual timer on that, I'd like to know. Oh, MikroTik wants you to use the CLI. Okay. Hold on a second. So they're kind of like a Cisco, where they want you to use this CLI because whenever Cisco develops a GUI, it seems to go wrong or bad. All right, there we have it. Officially, one JAU. I'm still waiting for that countdown clock, Joe, that I can put, down here, or wherever, and that'd be kind of fun. So, Joe says he really wants a switch that'll do 1, 2.5, 5, and 10 on every port. Yeah, that'd be cool. Does anyone actually do that at a cost-effective price? I'm pretty sure Cisco does, but I don't know that you want to buy a Cisco switch. Yep, everything sounds like a great idea until it goes down or gets hacked. I tell you what, I gotta be careful. In one of our chats at work, there's a thread with trouble tickets, and it seems like every day, literally every day, there's a trouble ticket with a fiber line somewhere, and it amazes me how many times fiber lines go down or are being serviced or whatever it is their day. And I almost sent it to you guys. I probably should have. There was a picture of a trouble ticket where it said the line was down, and the picture was 5 or 6 fiber lines in a pit, and the pit was full of water. So obviously they were doing digging or something like that, and this pit that the fiber line went through decided to fill up with water. And I'm guessing, although I could be wrong, that the connections were not watertight, or I don't know, but it just was, it was kind of made me laugh when I opened up the trouble ticket and here's a picture of a whole pit full of water. So glad it wasn't my connection. But I've seen this many times on this channel, this chat channel, where it's just like, oh, outage here, outage here, outage here. And sometimes they have pictures, and the pictures are usually like a backhoe, or in this case, water. Just made me laugh. It was just one of those things like, okay, yeah, I could, I could see why that fiber line doesn't work anymore. Yeah, that switch would be thousands, I'm sure. That's what I was saying. It probably does exist, but in a cost-effective solution, I don't know. No, I'm not saying you had to do it via CLI. I'm just saying that, or I think Niles was saying they want you to use CLI, and therefore the interface sucks. Joe says that's why I haven't made them move to 10 gig. I have to buy a $300 10 gig Sonnet Thunderbolt adapter for my laptop. Yeah, isn't that what Tony had to buy for his network? Or didn't he buy that 10 gig adapter or something? Or am I confusing people? I think he had to buy that Thunderbolt adapter where you had to put the card in it or whatever. I think that was Tony. Alrighty, well, I'm going to wrap this up. Unless there's any more questions, I want to thank you all for being here as usual. I hope you all enjoyed it. I think we're busy next. Are we busy next Monday? I think we are. Let me check my schedule. Next Monday we have a dinner, so I will probably not stream next Monday unless the dinner ends early. So I will keep you guys updated. I'll let you know. And so I hope you all have a good night, and thank you for watching.